Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Getting to Know You. This week, our guest is Rana Altenburg, Associate Vice President of Public Affairs. Is that right, Rana? Yes, at Marquette University, and a longtime parishioner. Rana also, I'm not sure if she remembers this, but was kind of integral to myself and my family becoming part of SEBS. She gave us our first tour of the school when Maria was a little girl, and was so kind and sold it very well. Here we are still. So.
Of course, I remember that. I take great pride in that. So, yes. I take pride in bringing the Metz family to St. Sebastian's, and just a bit of gratitude to your wife, because she was instrumental in teaching my daughters as well when they were at DSHA. So,
I mean, that's the faith, right? We just keep helping each other out, right?
Right. Yes.
Thanks for doing this today. Appreciate it.
Sure. Happy to do it.
How are you?
I'm awesome. Very blessed during this Lenten season, even more conscious of that. And Jeff and I went to Mass yesterday, and it was so great to see all the students and family members, and Father Peter Patrick just does such a wonderful job. We're so blessed to have him as our pastor, and it's just great to begin the Lenten season that way. So
it was for me too. I was at yesterday evening's Mass with someone I'm doing adult confirmation with, and the church was full, and with the mask mandate, optional now, it's like, oh, there's a little bit of hope.
Yes, there's a lot of hope. Yeah. We have a lot of hope. So yes,
a lot of hope. Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of people in the community know you and Jeff well, but if anyone doesn't, tell us about who you are.
Well, I guess kind of going back to the beginning, I'm one of 5 siblings. I grew up mostly in the Chicago area. My parents, people find this interesting, my parents are both from Baghdad, Iraq. So my mom and dad are both, well, my dad passed, but my mom and dad were educated as physicians, medical doctors there. And then in the Vietnam era, the U.S. had a shortage of doctors. And so my parents came to the United States. My sister was born in Iraq. My mom was 8 months pregnant with me. Wow. So when they landed in New York, so I am the first one born in the U.S., first American in our family.
That's cool.
So I was born in Yonkers, New York. Can't get much more American than that. I also graduated. I graduated from mostly Catholic schools. I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, and of course, Catholic college at Marquette. My only exception to school was I did my master's at Northwestern. But I married Jeff in 1991, and he's also a product of Catholic education. So he and I both really feel strongly about having our kids be the beneficiaries of Catholic education, and as a consequence, they went to both our daughters went to St. Sebastian's and to DSHA and Marquette University, and so it's come full circle. And I can't be more proud of our daughters. I mean, they really got a wonderful education at St. Sebastian. They were so well prepared for high school, and their high school education was exemplary, and both have excelled in college and beyond. So,
and what are they doing now?
Well, Hannah is a lead marketing specialist at a startup that was spun out of Harley Davidson. She's part of a company called Serial, Serial 1. Serial 1 is an electric bicycle company, and it's powered by Harley Davidson. And she's now living in Salt Lake City and, living the dream, and she's doing great. And Sophia is a 3rd-year dental student at Marquette Dental School. And I would just say both of our girls are really committed to, having careers that, improve society, that contribute positively either to the environment or to overall health and safety. And they are also really women who believe in in serving their communities wherever they are. And I think that grounding comes from their faith, our home life in that regard, but also from their schooling and their education.
I agree. It's definitely a part of their faith, but I would give you and Jeff credit. I mean, your family has definitely instilled an outward focus of service, and I would be remiss to not say Jeff is going to give the Soup and Substance talk, not next week, but the week after, and just the disposition of your family is inspiring to other people, because you have done so much in the community. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure my girls would ever give me, Mother of the Year award, but it made them stronger. They know how to take care of themselves, and their dad is equally engaged, and he more than I really enjoys the microphone and this kind of stuff. So you'll do better with him. I'm a little more behind the scenes.
I have to a little behind the scenes. I asked Jeff if he would do an interview, and I think we're recorded the next day. And you and I have been talking for months trying to get this on the books.
Yes, he's great. Everybody loves when Jeff is in the picture. So
yeah.
Me too.
Wonderful family. And I'm sorry, you can go on with we're talking about your daughters, and I interrupted you.
That's okay. I work at my career has mostly been in government and community affairs. When we got married, Jeff and we first settled in Washington, D.C. Actually, Hannah was born there. We lived there for 5 years, and that's really where I learned to lobby and work as a consultant in the government affairs world. Marquette basketball was on, in its kind of rebirth at the time, and the Packers were rallying and it's Super Bowl contenders, and cable really wasn't great then. So Jeff was very committed to having us move back here. And so we left Washington and moved to Milwaukee. And I was fortunate enough, Marquette was one of my clients when I was working in Washington. And I was able to, when Father Weil became president, come and work for him in-house at Marquette. And I've been here now 25 years at Marquette in essentially the same role in government and community affairs. And that's just a blessing in so many ways. One, I get to it's a great job where I get to interact with so many different people. I still get to go to Washington quite a bit, and Madison, and work with the city really closely. I get to serve on a number of community boards. Near West Side Partners is one that I helped found, and I chair that board. And Marquette's really committed to our neighborhood, our Near West Side neighborhood, which is actually adjacent to Washington Park and Washington Heights.
Can you share about the Northwest Partners if anyone isn't familiar?
Sure. Near West Side Partners is, it was created, really, Dr. Mike Lovell, president of Marquette, had wanted to engage. He's really big on community engagement and corporate partnerships and community partnerships, and having Marquette, be more intentional with its anchor role in the city.
Yeah.
And so we partnered with Harley Davidson and Molson Coors, Advocate Aurora Health, and the Forest County Potawatomi through their Potawatomi Business Development Corporation. We're the 5 major anchors of what constitutes the near west side of Milwaukee. So the border of that is, on the east, it's I-94. On the west, it's Highway 175. On the south, it's I-94. And then I-43 on the east, sorry. Right. And then on the north, it's essentially Highland Fleet area. And, it's 7 distinct neighborhoods. But we're all, we call ourselves a neighborhood of neighborhoods. And we work together in really 4 areas: safety and community well-being, housing and resident engagement, community wellness, from a healthcare perspective. So physical health, mental health, and then commercial corridor development, trying to bring new businesses and resources to the neighborhood and to the community.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a neat collaboration. You have done so much in your professional career. I'm putting you on the spot here, but tell me something you're really proud of that you've been able to work on or establish.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of areas that I could point to, that I'm personally proud of, but I would be remiss in not acknowledging that whatever I've been able to do, I've had either a team of people behind me, in front of me, alongside me, and so. But collectively, a number of us have worked really hard to help reposition, I think, Marquette in the city of Milwaukee as a real critical anchor. And just describing, our role with Near West Side Partners, that's certainly something we can all be proud of. And I'm especially honored to lead that effort. Another, more specific and is Marquette's dental school. When Father Weil became president of Marquette in 1996, the school was on the verge of closure. And now, through his leadership and subsequently other leaders at Marquette, and especially the dean of the dental school, Dr. Bill Lobb, we've been able to reposition it as a real critical state resource. We're the state's only dental school, and 70 to 80% of any dentist in Wisconsin is a Marquette Dental alum. Hopefully you go to a Marquette dentist. I
do. I go to a Marquette.
There you go. Excellent. So that's a real important resource for our state and our community. And then, more recently, being involved in helping to really strengthen Marquette's relationship with Indigenous communities in our state. So,
can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
This is the cover of the Marquette Tribune, but I think it's in the Journal Sentinel too. This is the new seal that came out. I just thought it was cool. I didn't want to spend a ton of time on it, but I was reading about it and saw that you kind of headed up the committee to reestablish that, and that was to try to bring some more dignity and honor to the seal and the people that it represents, right?
Correct. I chaired the effort that Dr. Lovell had asked us to work with Native American students and the Native American community and our internal stakeholders, and very importantly the Jesuits, the Jesuit community, and to really achieve the appropriate balance of what the seal should represent and reflect as Marquette's mission. And it's actually a little bit more of a difficult task. It's hard to get a lot into a small space and get agreement on what that looks like. But I think despite the time that it took, I think we got it right. And everyone seems to be proud of it. And most importantly, the two stakeholder groups, the Society of Jesus, our local Jesuit community, and our Indigenous partners, I think, are satisfied.
It's great. It's great. Thank you.
And I just want to clarify, it's an update. It's not a change. It's just updating the seal.
Yes, yeah. I'm glad you clarified that. As someone connected to the Marquette community, thank you for all you do for that institution. It's cool. And just the presence it is in our city, I think, is really important. So I want to transition now, if that's good with you, to your faith. And I want to talk about your involvement in SEBS, but begin just kind of asking you a broad question about we talked to Jeff and kind of heard about your family's faith life a little bit, but you talk about your commitment and what faith has meant to you a little bit.
Sure. Well, my faith is a grounding force in my daily life. As I mentioned, my parents are from the Middle East, and they were always Catholic. And so being Catholic in the Middle East meant you were really committed to your faith. And so you was a big part of my life growing up, and very important. You know, as being in a more of an immigrant family, where English wasn't the first language spoken in the house, or the only language spoken in the house, and we had lots of relatives who would come to stay with us as they transitioned from their lives there to a life in this country. Faith was the unifier. Everyone, and it's just an amazing connection that all of us have. And it doesn't really matter where you're from. I just always find it so fascinating whenever I'm traveling in a different city or even in a different country, and you go to mass, you're one community. And I just think that that's just an incredible, it's just incredible. So in my daily life, I'm a big believer in prayer, quiet, silent prayer for me. My favorite prayer is, the Hail Mary. I do try to say the Rosary. But at least I do a lot of Hail Marys all day long. And I will also say St. Anthony never disappoints when we are looking for things. So, but you have to be a believer. You can't just take St. Anthony for granted. And you can't just ask me to be a believer for you. You have to believe too. I'll do it.
Don't headline of this interview, do not take St. Anthony for granted.
There you go.
I recently lost my keys, and St. Anthony helped me out. So
that's because you're a believer.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Can I ask you to just say a little bit more about, obviously, have an immigrant family, being in the Middle East, and what that, like, the culture of being Catholic in that transition. You said it was a unifier. Can you just say a little bit more about that?
Well, when my name is Rana. Hindo is my maiden name. We grew up, when we go to school at lunch, it was, Middle Eastern food that was foreign. Now everyone knows what hummus is, and, it's a little different. But, back, I'm 55, back in the 70s, nobody really knew where the Middle East was or what you were. And, because we're pretty fair in our appearance, we could assimilate, but you were different. You felt different. But in church, it didn't matter. Like that to me is what always struck me. And when I was in college, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Madrid, Spain for a year, and through Marquette, and also an incredible opportunity. And I would go to mass regularly in Spain, or of course, when you're in Europe, you go visit churches all over the place. And I don't know, it's just a unifier. And it just made it felt like home, like you belonged there. It created that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
So growing up, with different food and parents who had accents and different names, and it just helped you assimilate. It was a lot easier for my family to assimilate than perhaps other people
that makes sense.
who are coming now from the Middle East, who don't maybe have that same faith tradition. They experience different hardships.
Yeah, that makes sense. That word belonging, I think, is important. I think that is one of the most valuable things about faith is that possibility for connection and feeling like you are comfortable somewhere in a place that accepts you. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your kind of relationship with Sebs then, as a place that you definitely belong to. And you said you've been a parishioner for 25 years, did you say?
Yeah, I think, we've been at Marquette 25. I've been at Marquette 25 years.
That's what you referred to.
I think so, probably 24, 25 years. Yeah, it sucks. We were very selective when we chose to join St. Sebastian's. Mm-hmm. Jeff and I, as I mentioned, lived in Washington, D.C. for the first 5 years of our married life. And we would routinely go to church at Holy Trinity in Georgetown, Jesuit parish there. And it's a great, beautiful church and really great. And we loved going there. Then when we bought our first house in Arlington, Virginia, Jeff had grown up always walking to church. He grew up in Stevens Point and he would walk to church. And he said, well, if we're going to buy a house, we got to be able to walk to church. And there was no way we could buy a house in Georgetown. So we were going to have to find another church to walk to. And so I was just on the mission to find a house. And then once I found the house, I'm like, oh, there's a church that's close enough that meets the criteria. So we started walking to that church, and it turned out to be, I mean, it's a very nice church and good community, but really conservative in its approach. And maybe it's changed since we live there, but they didn't allow girls to be altar servers or women on the altar. And, like that was an issue for me. And so we had Hannah baptized in Stevens Point. And when we moved here to Milwaukee, we first lived downtown. And so we went, parish hopping, and we would go to different parishes and churches and kind of check it out. And once we found our parish, then we found our house.
Yeah.
And so that's how we found Seb's. And really our very good friends, Rob and Therese Shellady, really introduced us to St. Sebastian's and living on the west side. And so, yeah, that's how we got there.
And what was it when you found Seb's? What was it that like popped for you? What made sense?
There's an undeniable sense of community the minute you enter the parish or the school. And, at that time, Hannah was in daycare, she wasn't school age at that point, and Sophia wasn't even born. But we could feel the sense of community. And I remember going to one of the masses, and Bob and Ginny Pauley had just written a song for St. Seb's, some anniversary or some, I can't remember why they wrote the song. It's a beautiful song. And
faith, something like planting the seeds of faith.
Yes. And I was just like, who does this? Like, this is an amazing place. So, we went to auctions, and Rob and Therese introduced us to a lot of the Seb's traditions, and our best friends now are as a result of the very first auction dinner that Rob and Therese bought that we participated in. And so the Walkers, the Nichols, Ninks, and of course, there's lots of other families we're very close to, but that was the original auction group.
That's great.
And we just offered another dinner at the auction for this year. So thankfully somebody bought it.
I had the pleasure of being the auctioneer this year, and it was a blast. But it was really funny how you talk about community. People just kept talking, and it was just because it had been 2 years since anybody had gathered. And at first you get a little frustrated, then you're like, people are just happy to be together again. Right. It was really like the spirit was overwhelming, how much people and people stayed real late at night because they just love being together. So I definitely second your observation about the community.
I would also say it was also, and this is 20 plus years ago, Seb's, when we first joined, we could feel the commitment to inclusivity, to diversity, not just of thought and socioeconomic status, but just of people in general. And it was everyone was equal, everyone belonged there too, and it was a really welcoming community. And I would say that's desired more now. People are trying to be more intentional about that, but Seb's got it way before it was intentional. It was also one of the first places to implement the school choice program. We didn't have to at the time, and they did, and that to me was quite remarkable. And I just think the dynamic between the parish and the school and the relationship that is so necessary for a successful parish school community has existed at SEBS for so long. And as I said at the beginning, we're really so blessed to have Father Peter Patrick, because he's a unifier. He's bringing the school and the parish communities together as they should be, and as they had once been.
Yeah,
So.
and it's like an age-old challenge to parishes to have maybe that possible tension between school and parish. And I don't feel that at SEBS. I think it's just such wonderful. And I would echo your sentiments about Father Peter Patrick. The theme of the auction was joy, and when I asked the chairs why'd you, they said because of Father Peter Patrick, because of his joy. I'm like, right. That's a pretty awesome characteristic to be known by.
And he's really hard to say no to.
That's right.
Yeah. I can say no to some people, but not him. He's a hard one to say no to.
Yeah, hence me working at the parish now.
It's always better to say yes in life in general. It's always better to get to yes.
Absolutely, yes. Have the mind frame of yes. Anything else you want to say about your parish involvement or your faith?
Because I see the value of a school like St. Sebastian's in the city of Milwaukee. It was easy for me to say yes to joining the Archbishop's real signature initiative with Seton Catholic Schools. And I know SEBS is not part of Seton yet, but St. Catherine's is, and I'm really proud of the mission of Seton, and really trying to make educational access a priority for both Catholic and non-Catholic families in our city. And we all know, and you're in education too, and as is your wife, education is the great equalizer. And so to have the opportunity for a faith-based education is critical, especially for those who come from families who struggle. And so I just am really proud of that opportunity as well.
I had the opportunity to lead some prayer services at St. Catherine's as part of the Seton School, and it's so cool. And that it's not all parishioners there, but like, isn't that always been the mission of Catholic schools, is to educate the people that come to their door? And it's neat to see the growth in faith and the exploration of that when we have our prayer services.
Yeah, and you see that in internationally, and when you look at missions all around the world, including in Iraq. My dad was educated by the New England Jesuits who had a high school there. That's why we all had to go to Jesuit high school, colleges. But most of the kids who went to, it was like an elite boarding school, but most of the kids who went there were not Catholic. But they all benefited from the American Jesuits who had their mission in Baghdad.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I don't think we talk about that enough.
Yeah. The church does really good work. So
right. And
I'm a believer.
A lot of time, I'm a believer too. But a lot of times the press is about where we slip or where we get things wrong. And that's part of the reason we're doing these, is to say, look at the influence, the positive influence. Sometimes we take for granted, I think, that the church and the people that are part of the church, that are the church, do in this world. So
exactly. Yeah. And I appreciate you doing interviews like this, because it does give the opportunity for people to be positive about their faith and their connection to SEBS and to our community. And I think that's great. We need more believers and people being positive about the role of our parishes and the role of faith in our daily lives.
Thank you. And it's just about sharing the good news. That's what we're trying to do. So,
amen.
Amen. Leads me to my last question. And maybe this is part of your hope. What do you hope for the future, Rana?
Well, I just hope that on a more personal level, that St. Sebastian's continues to prosper and to achieve all the potential it has. You know, I'm so grateful that, you know, when I was a young parent, that there were leaders that stuck with it and didn't leave the parish because their kids had gone off to college or to other schools. That's why Jeff is committed to being on parish council. That's why I signed up to be part of Seton. And we try to do everything we can to support the new families and the younger generation of subs parishioners and
Giving tours to new families.
Yeah. Although I have to admit, the students really sell that, you know. So
yeah, they do. You're right.
They
do a good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think you're right. Like the commitment and the growth. I know that's a desire of Father Peter Patrick, is like, and it's been hard with COVID. I mean, we took a definite hit in our just participation. That's why I think the auction felt so good this year. It was like, okay, we're welcoming people back in the door, but then to build on that momentum, I think is important, and to continue. I always say, like, I think one of my jobs as a minister in the church is chief community builder, you know.
Love it. That's great. I always say St. Ignatius was a community relations guy. You know, they say he's all these other things, but I'd say he excelled at that. And I would also just, I just, on a more broad note, I just want to share how inspired I am by the younger families and the newer parishioners, and how committed they are to it. It's hard to, especially during COVID, to stay connected and to be as committed as they are. But, you know, from the principal to the teachers to all the people who work in the parish, I think St. Subs has done an extraordinary job in really difficult times. And I just want to say a big thank you to Rocky Marcoux for saying yes, of course, to Father Peter Patrick and he's, you know, in helping to physically restore the church. That's inspiring too. It gives us hope for the future, that our church is strong and our community is strong and faith-filled and will prosper. And so
I think it is examples like Rocky, and I was thinking about the Cores and the Ambroses and the work they just did on the auction. It was inspiring to me. It made me want to be more invested in. I think that's maybe how it gets, how it's contagious. You get inspired by other people like the Altenburgs, and then you're like, maybe I should be a part of that. Maybe I have something to give here. So.
Yeah, we can't write music or sing like the Pollies, but we'll do what we can. Yeah.
They are a true gift too. It's so many gifted people. I think this is like maybe the 85th interview I've done. We're getting like right up there, and it's like there are just so many gifted people, inspiring people. We're just going to continue to share their stories, you know, as long as people keep watching. So
well, I think it's wonderful, and even if it's just you and me having a conversation, I've really enjoyed it, and it reinforces why subs matters in my life and in the life of my family.
Yeah, thank you, Rana. I appreciate it, and I really enjoyed the conversation too. Thanks for all that you do for the city and for the parish, and continued blessings on your journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.